Hello, Super League fans worldwide. I hope you've all recovered from what was an interesting night of action yesterday. We are back here with another one of our manager one-on-ones. And as you can tell from the background, today I am joined by Dragons boss Jaime. Hello, pal. How are you?
Yeah, good. How's it going?
Yeah, very well. We were just talking off screen there about Christmas and the sort of time you've got off work now until the new year. So hopefully you'll get rested up a little bit, and this will be the first thing to ease you into that.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's get cracking from the off then and talk about the Dragons. I think it's fair to say an inconsistent start. You're currently sitting 11th in the table. You are the joint second top scorers in the division. Your issue largely is that you have the worst defensive record in the division. What have you made when we're in that sort of delicate bit between a third and halfway through the season? What have you made of your first, 11 games?
Yeah, strange, because I've always been normally the one that doesn't score enough goals. I don't really concede that many. I've always been pretty strong defensively, but I haven't really scored enough goals, which is strange because I don't feel like we're a team that does score a lot of goals. That surprised me, to be honest. That's why we kind of went 3 up front yesterday and went for it, because I don't feel we're a team that scores a lot of goals. So I thought we'll throw a bit of caution to the wind. We're home. Haggis, a very good side, but themselves, although they're up there, they haven't been massively, I think, consistent. So I thought, why not have a go rather than, and if we're going to lose with a bit of a whimper, let's have a go. But yeah, I think overall, it hasn't been good enough. I've openly said we had a squad that should be making the playoffs, and obviously at the moment, last night does give us a little bit of hope. But yeah, on the whole, it hasn't been good enough.
When you look at your squad, what players, despite the fact you say it's not been good enough, are there players there that have done what you expected them to do? They're performing to a higher standard and have impressed, or perhaps haven't hit the heights yet that you expected them to?
I think Nedved was the massive disappointment. Don't get me wrong, we were playing him mostly in AMC, which I know isn't his best position, but someone of his quality, whether you play him centre midfield, AMC, left midfield, he should be, his numbers should have been a lot better. So yeah, people can say he was playing slightly out of position, but even at AMC, his tally was, it was terrible. So obviously we decided to let him go. I'd say the other really disappointing one for me last night has been Oliver Kahn. I think everyone talked, season 1, he's normally kind of the best keeper on the game. But I think we played 11 games and he's had 3 or 4 5s where he's let in an awful lot of goals. So although we do, you've alluded to, we concede a lot of goals, I think quite a lot of them have came in the games where Kahn's had 5. Obviously, I think he had a 4 against the Gazelles when we conceded 6. I think he had a 5 against Sloths when we conceded 3. And I think it's another 2 games where he's had a 5 and we've conceded 3. So the game, he's, obviously, I think when you played 11 games and over a third of them he's played a 5 or less, you're going to struggle, as it's been alluded to. Sometimes when your keeper is having a 5 or a 4 in the Super League, it's very hard to win games.
Kahn is obviously considered one of the best in that position, if not the best.
Yeah.
And you hear the disappointment in your voice when discussing his level of performance.
Yeah.
In the conversation I had with Scott yesterday, it was very similar when talking about Zidane.
Yeah.
Is there discussions going on about whether long term he isn't the man, or are you going to stick with him because of the quality?
Yeah, I think definitely this season we're going to stick with him. We're hoping. He was unhappy and he took a few weeks to sign a new contract, and his morale was very poor. So since he's had a new contract, I think he had a 9 last night, and I think he's had an 8 as well. So in his last 3 games since he signed the contract, he's performing a lot better. So he's definitely going to be the kind of main man this season. We have got Paul Robinson, who's not a bad keeper either. But yeah, definitely this season, Kahn will be the man. I think season 1 and 2, I'm not sure there's anyone better, in there. I know Buffon's quality, but I would say Kahn just edges being the best keeper in season 1 and probably season 2.
I think it's fair to say, and what I'm about to say, I'll say with the utmost respect intended. Much like myself, despite your longevity in the Super League, your achievements have equaled basically nothing, much like mine. Last year you had the brief experiment with having Boise in as assistant. It didn't work. This year it's the management trio. And although your position currently isn't great, the league is that tight that if you find that bit of consistency, you will move up. Let's talk about the other two guys briefly. What do they bring to the party? What is it they do that will help you achieve something?
Well, Wooder brings a lot of abuse, that's for certain. Whenever me and Duggan pick a team, he's straight on telling us how shit it is and he hopes we get pummeled. But other than that, to be honest, obviously I think when the rival started last year, we started obviously talking and, with a WhatsApp group and kind of got friends through that. And when we were looking for new managers at the time, they expressed an interest. Obviously, last season they paid a lot. They always watching the games on the Sunday. They weren't so much in the chat because I don't think they really knew anyone. So they always watched the games on the Sunday and obviously see how I was doing. So I spoke to Martin a couple of times and said, look, they were quite interested to get involved. And I think Martin was quite keen for having them on because obviously he'd seen how active they were with the rivals. And I think they brought a lot of kind of banter and things to it. So he was quite keen. But in the end, it didn't quite work out where other jobs were filled from assistants who are currently working with teams. So I spoke to them and said, look, guys, if you want to, kind of obviously they always watch the games anyway. And give me kind of inputs or things that they would have done last season, although it was a write-off anyway. So I said, look, if you want to get involved with me and just kind of get on board and kind of, give me thoughts and things, then I'm more than happy to do it. Obviously, I think they were quite disappointed that they didn't manage to get a job elsewhere and be involved in the Super League. So we just decided to kind of give it a go. I think with me and Boise, it was a bit, I think we've been a bit more relaxed this year. Not that Boise was, and I just think we've kind of just taken it for what it is and look, let's just enjoy it. Let's have a laugh. I think the last kind of year or two I've had other personal things going on and I kind of haven't enjoyed the Super League as much as I should, maybe taking it a bit too seriously and getting a bit too down if losing or things. So we just kind of got involved and all kind of said, look, obviously we're going to take it seriously and do it as best as we can, but at the same time, let's have a bit of fun with it. Let's interact and, just make it a laugh and enjoyable and something to look forward to, on a Sunday night, which is the main thing, really.
Let's take a little sidestep and follow that train of thought and just give us a little bit of insight into the games gone and how everything's going. I know I've watched a couple of them and I've enjoyed what I've seen.
Yeah, I think obviously it started off, they've got a lot of ideas coming into the new year. I think we started close to Christmas. So there was a lot of things really coming on. Like I had to work a lot of late nights, so I couldn't get involved or watch the full streams. And there was a lot of things going on. But we talked about it for a while and kind of said, everyone loves CM or 102 content, but we didn't want to kind of just do something that had been done before and just kind of run-of-the-mill things. So we discussed and obviously came up with the Games Gone. And obviously the Games Gone play along, which, kind of got people involved as well. So we've got a new thing, like obviously the World Cup, which we're looking to the Network World Cup, which we're looking to do after Christmas, which is another thing. Obviously, we're trying to do things which will get as many people involved as possible, just to kind of keep it, interactive and fun for people watching. So there's a lot of ideas going on in the background where we just said, look, let's have a break for Christmas now, just enjoy kind of Super League and time with the family, etc. And then in the new year, let's start again and get some, more ideas on the table.
Back to the subject in hand. Last night, there was a lot of talk about the tactics that you put forward for the Haggis game.
Yeah.
I believe at least one of the assistants had already written his resignation on the assumption you were going to get absolutely over. But lo and behold, the commentator's curse returned, and you picked up a much-needed win over top six side Haggis. I mean, you must be delighted with the result, but talk to us about the game.
Yeah, I think to be honest, the formation was a bit I was a bit late getting the team in, to be honest. Obviously, because I was saying I was working Christmas, basically worked right up until Christmas, kind of Christmas Eve night, Christmas Day night. So, to be honest, I didn't really get much. I wasn't on Twitter much, obviously trying to get as much sleep in as I can, obviously around, dinners and everything. So it was a bit last minute, and I just thought, as I said earlier, let's have a bit of a go. Our defensively, as you say, we conceded a lot of goals, and we've played like Babel and a few other people who really haven't performed. So I thought, let's just go one at the back, Taribo West on his own, and let's have a go. Put the 3 strikers on with Archie back. I was quite comfortable with our 4 across the DMC, especially with Zauri coming in. Zay Elias, who's probably been our best player this season. Saeed, who has as well, just came back from injury. And since Baumer's gone on the left-hand side, he's, showing why he is one of the best, in the league. Obviously, I think he's got 4 or 5 assists in like 7 games now since moving to the left-hand side. So I was confident there. Lee Bowyer, another one who's done well in the AMC, in the MC. So yeah, we just thought, let's just have a go. Do you know what I mean? Let's, got 3 up front. I know it was a bit gung-ho, and if we were away from home, I probably wouldn't have gone with it, but I just thought, let's just try something different. I think we had a bit of a chat after we lost the last game, and I think like Duggan done a tactic, and we paid so much attention to things, and it just didn't seem to work. And I think we would have said, let's just try something different, try, not to give too much respect to the Super League and things, and just chuck something new out there and see what it brings. So we did, and I know obviously the red card changed the game, but ultimately we've seen it in the Super League this year. Going down to 10 men, it doesn't always mean that you're going to win. And I think when they went down to 10 men after that, they didn't have a shot on goal, and I think we had like 6 or 7 on target. So I think people will always allude to the red card, but you still got to go out and win the game against a quality side, which was something we were delighted to do. And it does, as you say, give us that a little bit of hope. Now we've climbed over Dudley Hill and that, and we're looking up now rather than down onto the bottom, especially after Northern Burn won as well.
I would normally ask, following that question, about your next game. However, I believe you're one of the sides that had their game postponed. Do you think the fact that you've had that win now and you've got this extended break, is that going to help, with morale and things? Or, on one side, do you want to play again? And on the other side, the fact you're not playing, will you be able to just sit back and enjoy the next show, knowing that your result is not going to happen regardless?
Definitely think we'll be able to just watch the show and just enjoy it. That's for sure. But I think we would have liked to have played again. On the flip side, if you try and take a positive out of it, our next game is home again. So if we were to hopefully get a win, then we'll go obviously the game in hand against Leadersford away. We'll be going in with a bit more confidence again. But I do think ideally after a win, we would have liked to have played again, definitely.
Before we look at the bigger picture in the league, one last thing I wanted to ask you about was the transfer window opening and the ability to change the 24-man squad. Have you completed all 4 transfers?
No, just the 2 with Midlothian. So obviously Zauri and back for Nedved and Helguera.
Now, I think they're 2 good players for you to get in, and you've got 2 more available over the transfer window. Is there positions you're potentially looking to strengthen?
We would have possibly gone for another centre-half or possibly a striker. Obviously, we desperately wanted a right-sided player, and as soon as I heard that Zauri was available, he was obviously our number 1 target, and I think that's the reason we were willing to let Nedved go, to get him and Archie back in. But Zauri was the main target for the right-hand side, and they saw yesterday with him and Baumer on the left, they may not be the fashionable, the Cafus or the Zanettis or Zerabertos, but I do think they are as good as anyone on the game, and having them 2 gives us massive balance. But I think if we could have got a top centre half or top striker, we would have gone for it. But I'm more than happy with what we've got now. Getting that right-sided player was always the position we targeted, so getting our number 1 target was great.
Excellent. Let's look at this is the bit everyone enjoys, both the managers talking and the crowd
Yeah.
watching after it's uploaded. Given your position in the table, I think it's only right we start bottom up.
Yeah.
And give you just a few moments to discuss what you think about each team. Do you think they'll make top 6? Do you think they'll stay at the bottom? That kind of thing. So we'll start with Northern Burn, and they got their first win last night.
Yeah, very good win last night. I think they played quite well. I think the first 5 or 6 games, they were very unlucky. I think, what did they draw? 5 out of the opening 6 or 7 games, only lost 1. And there was a couple of them that didn't go their way, and you're just thinking the tide will turn for them soon. But then they went, I think it was 3 games, obviously against us was one where we just dismantled them, and a couple of others. And you kind of thought then, is it going to kind of work for them? I think their transfers, I know it threw up a lot of debate, but I think they were great. Although I do love Crespo, and I would have happily, taken him. I can see why he got rid of him. I don't think he's ever performed great in the Super League, Crespo. And I think he just thought, enough's enough now. He's not doing it for me. He's got Gattuso and Robin. He let Alex go as a good player, but I do think he's slightly edged that deal just with how Crespo performs in Super League. If you're talking about home saves, Crespo's always one of the best, so maybe a bit dodgy, but I think he's one now. He's probably the same as me, although he had a win last night. I'm not sure he sticks for that formation. Obviously, he played the 2 wide forwards, Jogatos and can't remember who we had on the right-hand side, but I don't think they were attacking. They're more kind of wing-backs. So although he won, I would be surprised if he stuck with that formation the same as myself. So it will be interesting what he does moving forward. But he's definitely got the players. I think he's definitely underperformed. But hopefully, I think Thierry Henry is going to be a big player. I think Alf obviously let him go, which he probably massively regrets now, because he was probably his best attacker in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And that is obviously, I think, an issue with the transfer window when you do deals so early. That obviously you sometimes lose out on a player. It happened to me last year when I let Montella go. I think I agreed to swap him. And then I think he scored like 5 or 6 goals in as many games. And I was just like, oh, what have I done here? So that's why I didn't go too early this year, because I wasn't going to let a player go who was in kind of top form.
Well, speaking of Alf, it says Astor side now in 13th. Is it a surprise to you to see them that low in the table, or is it almost irrelevant at the moment given how tight it is?
Yeah, it is irrelevant how tight it is, but I do feel... I know Alf obviously has said, and he always does go on that late run to get in the playoffs, but I just think there's too many good teams now. I think this draft, as you've seen, everyone can beat everyone, but I just don't think Alf is going to have enough over the course of the season to get near the playoffs. He's obviously going to disagree, as most people will, but I just feel his squad's not good. It's not good enough. I think he's kind of taken advantage over the last couple of seasons of there being average teams, which he's had enough to beat. But I just feel there's too many good teams now to, for him to make the playoffs.
I described you at the top of the show as inconsistent. I think another team that tag does agree with would be Dudley Hill. They are currently 12th now in the table. Steve was obviously a massive fan of the Super League coming into it. So are you a bit disappointed for him, or are they where you believe they should be?
No, I'm a bit disappointed for Steve. I think obviously he's massively was involved in the Super League even when he wasn't a manager. So I think it was great that he did get a job, because I think he was the one person who definitely deserved it. I think obviously it's different. As I always say, I think when you're not winning and you change formation, you get slaughtered for. But unfortunately, I think he's new, and probably as much as I did when I came in, I think he's maybe tinkering a bit too much. I think obviously let Iron Robin go. 1, Iron Robin is a bit young, and 2, I think he's played him in so many different positions, the same as Ronaldo. I know it's difficult because people aren't performing for him and you're trying to find out your best formation. But I think it comes to a point where you've got to say, right, Ronaldo is going to be my striker, Totti's going to be my AMC, and I'm going to give him 2 to 3 games rather than kind of changing around all the time. I know why he's doing it, because he's looking for that right formation and something to click. And when it does click and he has a good game, the next game kind of it doesn't go so well, and then he's chopping again. I think he maybe needs to decide, right, these are my best players. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to stick with them for 2 or 3 games, no matter what happens, and try to find a bit of consistency that way. Because if you keep on changing, I'm not sure it's going to work. And I know, to hand, because that's probably what I've been guilty of, in times as well.
We now leapfrog a position, because that would be yourselves. Directly above you is Leddersford, who themselves got a very good result last night. So
very good.
Again, we're talking about how tight the table is. I presume Leddersford are a team you're expecting to be rising up the ranks.
Yeah, they've got the quality, definitely, and they're going to be like ourselves. Obviously, they're just above us, and they're going to be thinking, why can't we? I think they've had a few disappointing results where they probably expected to get something. But I definitely, you're not writing Leddersford off. They've got the quality. I think they just maybe need Montella just to be a bit more, he's up front in his own now, which I thought was a great move by Hodgie, but he's not really doing it, especially what he did for Ryan. So I do think if Montella can get scoring, they've got a great chance. If he struggles, it'll be touch and go whether they make it.
Hull's Vikings are next up, and they're interesting because you could equally say they're consistent or inconsistent, because they put a big run of defeat, then a big run of wins, and then they're on the beats again. I believe, I could be wrong, I believe they're the only team in the league without a draw.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I don't remember them drawing a game.
So is it just a case of Jens turning some of those defeats into draws, or is it a case of they have to focus on the winning runs and timing them right?
Yeah, I think you definitely need to try and turn defeats into draws. But I thought they played really well last night, so he's definitely not going to be too unhappy. It was interesting that he changed formation to go with a kind of 4-1-2-1-2. I think it's good for Nicky Ferenko, kind of playing in that AMC. But I do feel his team was performing really well. And this is, again, obviously, he's performing really well with that 4-1-3-2. He has a defeat and then he's changed it. So I maybe would have said, especially for the home game, I would have stuck with what I know and kept those 3 AMCs with the lines going forward. But I can see why he did it. Obviously, he's trying to get the best out of Nicky Ferenko, which is, understandable. Stighout and Van Nistelrooy, they've gone on a bit of a run, but I think they kind of go on a run where they score a lot and then don't score at all. And that's kind of been his problem. They probably need them to be a bit more consistent rather than Van Nistelrooy maybe getting 2 or 3 games where he scores 5 or 6 goals and then goes 4 or 5, maybe only scoring 1. So I think he needs to try and get them to the, kind of more of it consistently scoring and probably put up more of a fight that way.
One team that is slowly but surely making their way up the table is Churchtown, a team that a lot of people have discussed. There's a lot of respect out there for Kieran. There's a lot saying that the squad has been weakened during the pre-season transfer window, and it's not as strong as he's had in the past.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on this debate? Are Churchtown genuine top 6 contenders because of the manager, or not because of the squad?
Oh, they're 100% only contenders because of the squad, because of the manager. The squad is definitely a lot weaker than it was before. I understand, when he was saying, obviously about the Maldini deal, saying he was going for kind of players who he hadn't worked with before, but he got rid of Maldini and Edgar Davids, and who did he bring in? Ashley Cole, Okaronko, and someone else who I don't even think plays. So he's definitely weaker, but as he's proven again last night, they are challengers for the top 6, but only because of him, not the squad. I think there's probably managers like me and you. If we had that squad, the same as Edwards, I don't think we'd have a fighting chance with it, to be honest. But he's, after a terrible start, he's coming on a bit of form now, so he's definitely a contender now. If you'd asked me a couple of weeks ago, even with him in charge, I would have said I don't think that squad's good enough, but he's proven me wrong, in fairness, so well done.
Just outside the dotted line are the Gazelles, that pre-season favourites for most of the the managers, although they have been called out by one or two recently for criticism. And I'm going to ask you the same questions I asked Scott yesterday. When you look at their squad, are they struggling to handle the pressure of being the favourites?
Yes, I think so. I think he quite kind of enjoyed it last year. It was kind of no pressure, was it? Kind of, if he won, great. If he didn't, everyone was like, oh, well, his squad's not the greatest. And I think he came in with, one, he's proved he can do it before. As I say, with Hoddesdon, he had a great squad and he always delivered. And then obviously he's had a great squad this year. So straight away, everyone's thinking he's got a very good squad. We know the manager's quality when he's got quality players. But yeah, I can't say struggling. He's only one outside the playoffs, but I do feel there is a lot of pressure on him. And yeah, I think attacking wise at the minute, obviously, he scored 6 past me when Oliver Kahn had a 4. But besides me, I think attacking wise, I think he's been, a bit of a letdown.
We now jump into the fabled top 6, and anchoring that 6th position at the moment are the Sloths. Great to see Rob in the chat last night. Glad he's feeling a bit better, although not fully recovered. What are your thoughts on the Sloths?
I think they've been great. People like Collins, Scally. I think they're struggling at the minute for a striker. I know obviously Eversand's been injured and Palermo hasn't quite done it, although I'm a big fan of his. But I think, again, their squad isn't the best on paper, but they're definitely getting the most out of what they've got. And I think if they could get maybe that one up front scoring a few goals, I don't see any reason why they can't make the top 6.
In 5th place is the Haggis, who, as we've already mentioned, you beat. Something that you've said that a few others have said over recent weeks on the preview shows and in these one-to-ones is they're up there despite not playing particularly well. So in your opinion, will it click and then suddenly they'll be frightening, or will their good fortune end and you can see them dropping out?
No, I don't see them dropping out. I think they're definitely a bit short on the top end of the pitch. Obviously, I got slaughtered by him, obviously, for calling out Salas, in game week 1 where he scored, where Salas for me is shite. And it's proven that. Now I know he's got injured, but he's dropped well out of it. Don't think they've got enough out of Henrik Larsson. I do agree, obviously, that defensively, like the 2 centre-halves, obviously then you've got Vieira, Mendieta, Agath, and obviously now Nedved and Rosicky, who's been quality, and Candela on the left. So, the back end of the defensively, they're outstanding. I just think they need a bit more, obviously, at the top end. I know he doesn't really perform that well season 1, but I did think when I was looking at it last night and seeing who was injured, I'm quite surprised Brozek didn't play, because I probably, would have thought, look, Kia is not great for me. So I probably would have gone for. I'm surprised Archie Back never really played, to be fair. I thought, I know he really wanted Nedved, so he was willing to part with them to get Nedved to complete that midfield 3. But with Larsson not doing great, I'm surprised Back didn't play more. But I do think they'll finish in the top 6. But I do feel if I was him, I know he's got Nedved. I would, if he could have done a trade somewhere, I probably would have sacrificed someone like Mendieta if the deal was there to be made. For a top class striker, if he could have maybe gone for Crespo or Vieri or someone, if the deal was possible. Obviously, not many people want to get rid of their top strikers, but I do feel he's a top striker away from, being in the top 2. But Brozek, from next season onwards, is going to be a game changer for them.
In 4th place is one of the sides being described as one of the surprise packages of this season. Locomotive Boston, Greavesy obviously in charge there, currently the highest position new manager. Have you been impressed with what he's managed to do with the squad he has?
Oh, massively. Let's be fair. We all said start of the season, 90% of the managers, that he's got no hope. His squad, for me, wasn't the best to start off with. I think he weakened it in the transfer dealings, or so it looked from the outside. but he's been outstanding in his results. He kind of takes each game as it comes. Even when he's winning, he kind of mixes it up sometimes and looks at the opposition and changes and things. And I think out of everyone in the league, he deserves massive credit, because although he's another one like Steve, who paid a lot of attention from the outside, it is a lot different when you come into it, especially with how even the squads are this year. But he's gone with players he knows, and they're doing brilliantly. So I think he deserves massive praise for the job he's doing so far.
The top three are all separated by goal difference only, all on 20 points, I believe, from 11 games. Currently in third were the league leaders until last night, Bostock Stanley. That's 2 defeats in a row now for Scott. Do you think he'll start to panic or be concerned?
I think he'll be a bit concerned because he's lost 2 games on the trot. I certainly don't think he'll panic, because he's experienced. He's been there. Obviously, with Chudley, made a really big fist of it last season. So I certainly don't think he's going to panic, but I do think he will be concerned, because he's another one who I think deserves massive praise. Because I think when people looked at his squad start of the season, I don't think anyone would have had them up there. What I will say is I think Scott is one of the teams who has won, when you see those close games and they kind of go either way, Scott is the one who seems to win them. Now, if those start to go against him, then things could become a lot trickier, because I think, he's won so many games, probably have been 50-50, but he's just then edged it. So yeah, he's certainly not going to panic, and I think he'll certainly look to make the top 6. But I don't think I'd have him in my top 2.
When we discussed Churchtown earlier, you said that they were top 6 contenders because of the manager and not the squad. When we see the Devils in second, is that because of the squad and not the manager?
No, I think you're making decisions and you're getting the best out of your team at the minute. I think people will look last night, and from the outside, I thought there was, again, some strange decisions being made. Diaz over Van Bronckhorst. I think, the 4 transfers you've made, again, 90% of managers will probably look at them and say, well, they're not getting near my 24, never mind the 14. But obviously some of them have gone into your team. But I do feel, obviously, the squad is a big thing, and you've got Impenza firing, which, again, for me, he's the most proven Super League striker. So I think you've always got a chance. I think you need to try and get a bit more out of Ronaldinho. I don't think he's quite doing enough. And I stick it again, Barry Ferguson is doing well, but he's not, again, if you asked anyone, is he better as MC or DMC? I think, again, 99 people were going to say, in MC, but he's that good. Of course, he can play DMC, but it's just, again, if you don't play an MC, it's a bit different. But obviously, I certainly think that's his best position.
And finally, the team that I've been talking up quite a lot in recent weeks, Fulchester now top of the table, Mythbuster Macca leading the charge there. Much like himself, he's playing it down every single week. Have you been impressed, and can they stay there?
In fairness to Macca, he plays it down compared to you because his squad is not a patch on yours. I think Macca is true. How many of his if take Veron out of his team now with your squad, how many of his team would you take to look to start in your starting 11 with your 24?
I can't remember exactly who started last night, but I reckon you would probably do a 50-50 split. Easily.
Not a chance. No?
I
don't know. No, I wouldn't say 2 or 3. If you take Veron out and the rest of his 10, I don't see. I know Vasilic. You've taken Vasilic out of your reserves and he's gone and started. I don't see. I'm looking at his team now, like Zabiscan, Rivaldo, Scholes, these type of players. Giggs obviously would as well, because he's probably been one of the best players in the league. But I honestly think only 2 or 3 players. And I think he's exactly right. He hit that on the other day. People are saying, kind of praising him up and saying this where he should be. But yet the only players who people have approached him for are Veron. No one's inquired about any of his other players. So I got to be honest. I know he kind of stirs things up, and he's a bit of a bit of a wind up that way. But I agree with him completely. I don't think he gets the praise he deserves because he gives people a lot of shit. But if you sit back and look at that 11, I'll be honest, other than Giggs and Veron, there's not many players that I take out of this team to put in mine. So I think along with Greavesy, I think he deserves massive praise.
Last question then before we conclude, as I did with Scott yesterday. In order, please, who do you believe will finish in the top 6 as we sit here now?
Who do I think will finish in the top 6?
In order.
In order. That's tough. I'm a bit stuck on that one. I honestly don't know. I'm trying to...
Okay, if you can't do it in order, are there any teams you say will definitely be in the top 6?
I think the top 3 now will be in the top 6. I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised. I think Bostock have just got enough. Macca seems to be getting the most out of that squad. But yeah, I do think the rest are kind of up for grabs. I do expect 1 or 2 out of the chasing pack. Kieran is showing he's coming on a good run now. Ourselves and Ledesford are not out of it, even Dudley Hill. So it is impossible to say because there are, although I'm saying I do think, Scott will finish on there. A couple more, defeats for him. Then I say again, does he then start the panic? The same as yourself. I think you made a lot of changes last night where some people looked at it, where Dyer was playing and things. And I think you were another one who could, the pressure's gone on you before. So, obviously if you started to have 1 or 2 defeats, you do start to doubt yourself. It happens all the time. And I just think, as I've said before, the league is just the tightest that it's ever been. I think it is literally so hard to call. I think normally by this stage of the season, even though we're less than halfway, you're normally writing off about 4 or 5 teams. If we were looked at it last year, when I think we did the mid-season review, although we're 2 games less, we probably writ off about 4 or 5. I think this year, other than Northern Burn, even Alphen 13th, I think you could say, I wouldn't completely write Northern Burn off, but I think they may struggle, where they are. But I think all 14 teams are going to be looking and just thinking, just let me win 2 or 3 games on the trot, and that table changes massively. Look at Kieran now, as he won 2 or 3 on the trot, then he's gone from 13th place to close just outside the playoffs. So I think it does show how much it can change, and I do think you're probably going to be looking around game 18, 19 before you start to think, right, the top 6 is taking a bit of shape now.
Listen, we're running out of time, so I just want to say thank you very much for doing this. And enjoy your time off, and we will speak again very soon.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Speak to you later.
Go and remove them splinters.
Yeah, I'll see you later.
See you, pal.
Ta-ra.